Blessings, BookTube, and welcome to another Tag Tuesday.
I like to read. You do too. Let's get ridiculous.
All right, it's the 101 Days of Summer Tag. I'm doing the 1001 Nights, so I figure I wanted to do the 101 Days. And big thanks to Sui's Book Banter for tagging me in this. There are 9 prompts. Each has something to do with the theme. Number 1 is barbecue time. Pick a favorite author. They are inviting you to a barbecue to announce their latest work. What do you hope they are announcing? Well, I'm going to resurrect MLK. My first thing was Buddha, but then, he would reincarnate. I figured that the resurrection should give MLK a pretty good ear from the leaders of the planet. And as you know or may know, he, at the time of his death, was moving into more questions of class. And so I would love for him to continue that work that he was doing and liberate or improve the condition of all lower class people, so-called lower class, working class people, as he, in the same spirit and manner of work which he did with, obviously, African Americans. So that's kind of a serious one, just to get you going off the top here. Number 2, road trip. Pick a real world setting from a recent or not so recent read. Where would that road trip take you? Well, it took me all over the place through a ton of different books. I thought of, I don't know, like, I first thought of the castle full of women that tempt him, that one of the Arthurian knights stumbles into. But that, I think, is in lore land, and this said to keep it real. I don't know if we're allowed time travel, but I knew I wanted to be in Paris. If I could, it'd be back in the day. But if not, I'm going to do Café of Our Lost Youth. This is by Modiano, one of the French Nobel laureates. What I like about it is it's got that cafe culture, deep discussions like Proust, but the gray Paris. And that was my experience of Paris. It's a very gray city, gritty, along with all the glamour. And I figure if I'm going to fall in love, it's probably going to be with someone who's a little grit in their background. So yeah, wonderful conversations, great food and coffee, and hopefully love. All right, camping. Do you rough it, say a tent and sleeping bag, or do you require amenities? Will you read more than usual? It is interesting to look at Khao San Road here in Bangkok now as opposed to in the past when it was really a backpacker place with $5 a night, you can't even call them rooms, cells with no fan even. And people were roughing it and they were traveling all over, Asia on $100 or whatever they were doing. It is very much glam. What do they call it now? Glamping. It is glam packers galore. And because of that, it's brought all this commercialization to Khao San Road. So I am going to be old school and camp. I almost said au naturel, camp more rustically. However, I have to admit, my most significant nature experiences were like in the Sahara or like in the Caucasus Mountains when I lived in Georgia. They were extreme environments where you didn't stay out at night. I mean, there were wolves howling. You found a water source, which means a village. So you always made it to a village. You didn't camp out. So my major camp experience probably then, sadly, would be my attempt to hike the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, the entire east coast of the United States, which was when I was in the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, and I wanted to have this kind of spiritual retreat, and I didn't make it out of Georgia. It was big time my midlife crisis. Would I read more or less is one of the questions on there. I think I would read less, and here's why. One, carrying weight. When you're hiking, you don't carry weight. So all I would have had with me was that Bible, with the super thin paper, so it weighs nothing. So there's a lot. That's a chunky book. So you think you could read a lot theoretically. But here's the thing: after a full day's hiking, you're out. Plus, when the sun sets, you go to bed and you get up when the sun rises and get going. So yeah, not a lot of reading time when you're truly uh, hike camping. All right, so festivals. You're attending a BookTube Festival where dressing as your favorite literary character is the only requirement. Who do you go dressed as and why? My all-time favorite, proudest literary costume was when I was married. My wife and I went as uh, Guildenstern. What's their name? Rosen. Rosen. I wrote it down and now I can't say it. Uh, Rosenblatt and Guildenstern, whatever it is. Sounds like a lawyer firm. Undead. So the Tom Stoppard play, right? Like they're dead. So we were like zombie, but we were at the fluff collars of the, I guess more the Elizabethan age than the Danish. Would have probably been like black turtlenecks. I don't know. We dressed as sort of Elizabethan zombies, but I was pretty proud of it. My most daring costume was I didn't have a costume, and this was in the Ivory Coast, and I felt I had to represent because I was there on medevac from Mali, and we Mali volunteers, we had a reputation, so I couldn't be shown to be not fun. So I grabbed a tree off a big old leaf, not that it was needed, off of a tree and went as Adam. So that's what I would do if I was improvising. No, I was thinking, of course, my favorite is, Cervantes, Don Quixote, but I don't have that shape. So I would definitely be more of a Sancho, but I don't feel like a Sancho. So I thought of, and he's not a favorite character, and I'm very different from him, but I think it would be funny, really funny to go as the narrator, protagonist, authors, stand in for Confederacy of Dunces, with that weird fur cap that he wears up in New Orleans and all of that. I think that would be a funny one for me at my current body type. All right, so that would be funny. Slice of life. What is something others may consider simple or mundane, but it's something you can't see a summer without? Yeah, I didn't come up with a good answer for this one either because I think it means like the essential in the mundane. So in that case, I think eating, because my number one goal in life is to eat no meals alone. I hate eating alone. For some reason, that's the one thing. Just don't like to do by myself. And funnily enough, I've been eating almost all of my meals alone for some years now. So if you have someone to share a meal with, that's what it's all about, and I enjoy that. And if any of y'all want to come to Thailand, I got a nice futon. We can go out and eat. All right, it's good food. Here we go. Scary story. Which author would you invite to go camping, which you would want to hear the scariest story they could tell around the campfire? Well, I don't care for horror or scary stories at all, at all. It's what I don't like. So I think I would have to go with the Buddha this time to tell me about the bardo. So the journey after death that the human soul makes into reincarnation, if you believe in that, whatever is next. And there's a whole story that they tell there called the Bardo. It's probably the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You can, there's a really great movie where it's in Tibet, and his family is sitting with their dead relative who's, decaying, and they're reading him the Bardo. And monks come, and the family, they're all reading him the Bardo, and it's really beautiful, and it's a really neat film, and it's narrated by Leonard Nimoy, so maybe you can find it that way, who does a really amazing job. But After a bit, you forget it's Spock, but that was trippy. I was at the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley. I was a teaching fellow, and I taught a class, or I developed a class called Listenaries, which I didn't get to teach, but the idea being like to go to like foreign climes without telling them how it is, but just listening to them, how it is, capturing their religious beliefs before their cultures disappear. It was something I was hoping to try to do to get more engagement. Most Unitarian Universalists, like most churches, they leave as soon as they're old enough to get out. So I thought, obviously some churches do the mission thing, and it's very popular and it excites young people. And I thought maybe the Unitarians could do one called Listenaries, and spiritual practices of listening as well, and all of that. It was a cool course, so maybe I'll get to teach it one day. All right, so we've got the slice of life, scary, first love. So a romantic interest during the summer months often leads to a bittersweet ending or lasting impact. Which do you prefer to read? How does the age of the characters affect? Age doesn't affect at all. For this one, I want to go with a book called Jeffrey Eugenides, or however you say his last name, who wrote The Marriage Story. Marriage Story, I think that's it. Among his other great works, Middlesex, and the one with the girl, all the girls that suicide. I think that's him. Anyway, this book is great. It's sort of a love triangle thing, and what I love about it is that one of the characters, has bipolar, which I also have. I missed May, Mental Health Month. As usual, I'm late to the game. So here I want to represent and remove stigma and tell you that, you can live with this, with medication, a nice normal life. Not that my life is normal, but you know what I mean. A productive life. I work and, all that. I live. With manic depression, as it used to be called, bipolar. Anyway, not to go too much into all that. But what I liked in that book was, it wasn't always pretty. Kind of like also in that movie, Something Playbook. It'll come to me after, I'll put it in the show notes. It's not always pretty, but I felt like it represented, the ups and downs, no pun intended, of living with bipolar. Well, he didn't end up with the girl, which is why it's kind of bittersweet. But that's a big spoiler. Sorry. It's well worth the read. Everything I spoil, I'm telling you, has value added. Okay, so last one is about nostalgia. Next last, 8, nostalgia. What is a book or books that imbibe you with an overwhelming, imbue you, I think, probably with an overwhelming sense of summer nostalgia? They don't have to take place during summer, but provide a strong attachment anyhow. For me, this is the original Dungeon Master's Guide for Dungeons and Dragons. For some bizarre reason, they put this giant demon devil character on the cover. It did not help. It did not help with the image. But, that was before it became, this whole business in the very early days of role-playing games, and hugely influential. The original author, Gary Gyrax. I was there in the beginning, and I lived it. I loved it. It got me through high school. The only things that got me through high school were sports and living and creating my little Dungeons and Dragons world. And they're pretty big books, and they're not cheap, although they're not as expensive as they are nowadays. But I used to spend most of my disposable income on Dungeons and Dragons books and invent, a whole world with histories, Tolkien type level creation. Not that anyone ever played with me, but I enjoyed it a great deal, and so nothing makes me more nostalgic than those books. Which I recently saw a booktuber did some reviews, of some of those books, and I saw the cover, and I was like, oh. All right, so now the last one, summer stories. What's a book or books you would recommend where summertime is the primary focus? Oh, well, you don't do seasons any better, probably, than, you know, Chinese poetry. So any collection of Chinese poetry, my favorite is Li Bai. He also goes by Li Po. Um, the Chinese character, the second one is definitely Bai. Not the Bai White, but the other Bai. Or no, the Bai White, not the other Bai. Like, anyway. Um, and it's called Summer, where is it here? Summer Mountain Poem. So summer, that'd be Xia Tian. So Xia which would be summer day, Shan, Shanzhong, so in the mountains. Shan is mountains. So I'm not going to read it to you in Chinese for two reasons. One is my tones are horrible, and the other is I'm not sure too many Mandarin speakers are watching this. I wish, that would be awesome. Anyway, here it goes. Translation is by Whaley. Summer in the mountains. Gently I stir a white feather fan. With open shirt, sitting in a green wood, I take off my cap and hang it on a jutting stone. A wind from the pine tree trickles on my bare head. That is by Lipo, Summer in the Mountains. Thank you, and I'm going to tag some folks down in the description box.